YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV, another game of interplanetary I Spy going on here for all you space detectives. And today we are looking at China's Chang E-4 mission that landed on the moon about 6 days ago. And we're looking at this image. Now, I had a bit of trouble getting hold of the original of this image, but I managed to find it from Astronomy magazine here. Here's the page, Astronomy magazine, and they've got the full size version of the image. There are lots of images of this online, but most of them have been downsized or cropped or whatever by various people. But this one, I think, is the original size. So let's crack on with it. There will be links to all this stuff, by the way, in the description, as usual, so you can download all this stuff and check it out. Let's get straight into it. Here's the image. Now, what I've done with this is I've enlarged it, because as it comes, let's actually undo that enlargement. There we are. As it comes, it's actually quite a small image and is not very good quality at all. And I think it's been downgraded also and compressed. So we've lost detail. It's got this rather strange brown filter on it because from my knowledge, at least, most of the images I've seen do not show the moon this colour. Now, it may be this colour on this part of the moon, because obviously this is a different side of the moon to other missions that have gone there, as in the Apollo missions and others. So there are some areas of the moon which are very green or yellowy sort of colours, and some parts of it are very blue, some parts of it are quite brown. So maybe it is the actual colour, but let's have a look at it. Now you can see here where what they've done is they've got the image and they've added their logo to the top here and some information up here, and done a very poor job of it. I think if you look closely at the logo, they haven't even bothered to fill in that part of the A there with black. So that should have been black to match up with the rest of it. So that's very amateurish, if you ask me. And it's a poor quality image. When you look at the horizon, it looks like it's been edited here, and you can see all this kind of weird pixelation and choppy kind of weird colours along here, as if it's been doctored. Okay, so that doesn't look right at all. So the image is straight off the bat looks like it's been altered quite heavily, and when you zoom in, there's hardly any detail here, and it's very fuzzy. You've got lots of distortion, you've got lots of compression lines like you get on some of the Rover images from the Curiosity Rover and such like. It's being heavily compressed and converted into a JPEG rather poorly with rather high compression rates, I would say. I would say at least 25%. So it's a poor quality JPEG, but there is some detail to be seen here, and actually what I'm going to do to make it a little bit easier to look at, I'm going to re-enlarge it again. What I've done here is just stuffed it full of pixels to get rid of that distortion, and that kind of smooths it out a little bit and makes the information a little bit more reliable to look at. And straight off the bat here, what we have in this little crater is what looks like some steps here. I don't know if you can see that, but I can see it. Now what I'll do, I'll darken it up a bit and hopefully that will come out more. Let's go dark and see what happens. There we are. Now maybe you can see them better now. There's the top. There's another one. There's another one. And there's another one. Okay. And that's got an angle to it. There's an angle to that as well, coming down. There seems to be an angle there. A little bit straighter than that, I think. Just there, and one there. Not easy to see, but if you darken the image up, let's go brighter as well, and see if that pushes it out there. Let's go to that. It might help a bit, and again. See these shadows here? You can see steps. Now, why would there be steps on the edge or leading into a crater? How odd is that? Now, I do appreciate that this may be some kind of optical trick, because these images are pretty poor, and because of the pixelation and distortion in the image, it's very hard to make out what you're looking at all. So let's go back to the raw image. There's also something here rather bright sticking out here, and there seems to be a sort of box shape to it, but that may just be a natural kind of rock there. It's really hard to make out. Sorry, let's go back to that. Right, okay. So yeah, there are some interesting details here, and there's a rather strange sort of long strip at the back that goes right along here, and a sort of white line here at the top. I mean, what the hell is that supposed to represent? Just here and here. Very strange. Okay, what is that? There's some weird stuff going on in this image, and much like we get from the Mars rovers, it looks like they put a sort of yellow or orange filter over it to make it go this sort of brown colour. Because if you look at images from, say, the Apollo missions, here's an Apollo image. I don't know which. I think this is from 17. I think I may be wrong. Now, not only are these far superior in detail, these are proper high-res images. These are 300 pixels per inch, right? And these are large format images with lots of detail. And look at the color. Now this is a color image. You can see the colors here. But look at the color of the surface. It's kind of grey, okay? And in fact, most of the moon images we've seen in the past, from NASA at least, are this color. And we have these rather smooth hills in the background. Why are they so smooth? Well, our moon probably had an atmosphere many, many millions of years ago, probably billions of years ago. This is why the topography is so smooth, because this has been wind eroded and possibly even water eroded. A lot of this stuff. There are lots of what look like river channels and things like that. And all the hills are kind of smooth. This is why many people think that the images are fake and that the backgrounds are fake. They're not. Our moon probably had an atmosphere, and that would explain the erosion and shape of these hills and mountainous areas on the moon, okay? So bear that in mind when you're looking at moon images. It doesn't mean they're all fake. A lot of them have been doctored. We know they have. I've spoken to people from NASA about this and JPL, and they've admitted it. So certain whistleblowers have let the cat out of the bag with that one, so we know that they have been doctored, some of them. Not all of them, but many of them have. And the problem is determining which ones are and which ones are not fake or doctored. This one looks normal. There's no sign of any weirdness going on here. And one thing to do is look at the edges. The edges look smooth and natural, okay? So that looks like a real image. What I'm trying to get across here is that the moon is odd, and we're not being told the truth about the moon. And when we look at this one from Chang E-4, you look at the edges here. What's this? What is all this? This looks to me like it's been doctored. They've changed the contrast, they've stretched the contrast a little bit, and they've downgraded the image and saved it as a low quality JPEG. And it's only a 1 meg image. In other words, it's only 1 megapixel. And that is pretty poor. In fact, it's almost as bad as the ones that we've seen from the InSight lander that landed on Mars very recently. They're the same size. Now, why would you take a tiny 1 megapixel camera to do science on another planet or planetary body like the moon, when ideally you want to see detail on the ground, especially if you're going to be drilling and taking samples? You want to see good detail to see what you're doing. And also there may be stuff there which would show up in the photographs that may give away certain mineral deposits on the ground. There are some very rare and expensive valuable minerals on the surface of the moon, which is apparently why they're there, and also to find water ice as well. So that's what we're told, but there may be more going on here than we've been told. I mean, a lot of us don't trust NASA, with good reason, I think. A lot of us don't trust NASA with good reason, I think, but if I was to trust either NASA or the Chinese Space Agency, who would I trust more? You have to ask yourself this question, because there's some very odd things going on that we haven't been told about between the Americans and the Chinese, and there seems to be something going on in the background that is rather strange. There seems to be some rather strange things going on between the Americans and the Chinese when it comes to space. This may be one of the reasons why Donald Trump announced a Space Force recently, not because there's aliens up there, but because they're worried about the Chinese letting the cat out of the bag, perhaps. They might contradict some of the findings or statements that NASA have made over the last 30 or 40 years. So there's obviously something going on up there, and there is evidence of this. I've got this page up here. This is a Wikipedia page. So let me show you the top of the page here. It's called Chinese Space Program. And if you scroll down about halfway, Chinese exclusion policy of NASA, okay? I'm not going to read all of this out, but I'll just kind of skim over it. Due to security concerns, all researchers from the US National Aeronautics Space Administration, NASA, are prohibited from working with Chinese citizens affiliated with the Chinese state enterprise or entity. And it goes on to say, the history of US exploration exclusion policy can be tracked back to 1998 when the US Congressional Commission led by Christopher Cox discovered that the technical information that American companies provided China for its commercial satellite ended up improving Chinese intercontinental ballistic missile technology. So in other words, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes about missiles, and of course, once you have rockets capable of taking people into space, then obviously these can be used for other things than just exploration. These missiles can be fired. And there was this was further aggravated in 2007 when China blew up its space station in the low Earth orbit, right? There's a little diagram there, to test a ground-based anti-satellite missile, okay, ASAT, right, there it is. There's the ASAT, anti-satellite missile. The debris created by the explosion contributed to the space junk that litter Earth's orbit, exposing American military space assets, whatever they may be, at risk of such as accidental collision. So in other words, the Chinese actually were testing missiles in space, firing them up into space at their own space station that they put up there years ago, and blew it up, and then all the junk kind of, all the shrapnel kind of blew outwards. And from what I've read and heard from other sources, one or two American military satellites were actually taken out during this event, or at least damaged and perhaps knocked off course, okay? So there's a lot of stuff going on up there, and this is worth looking into further. So I'm giving you this link here down below in the description as usual, so you can read up on this, but there may be a lot more going on up there than we are being told. Often the stuff we get on Wikipedia and that is censored. A lot of the stuff with space is actually censored by not only by NASA but by our various governments around the world, and also by the media, who seem to only ever say exactly what they're told when it comes to space exploration. They never actually ask any questions, any serious questions. I don't think they're allowed to. Either that, or they're too stupid to actually know what questions to ask. But they basically repeat what they're told, parrot fashion, in a childish and fairly pathetic manner, actually. If you watch it, the mainstream media, you know, the Comedy News Network or whatever, or the BBC or whatever, they just repeat parrot fashion what they're told to say or what they're given, and they never really ask any serious questions about what is going on in not only in near space but on some of these planets that we're exploring right now. Okay, so that's my rant out the way there. There's something very odd going on up there, and we're not being told. Okay, this could explain a lot of the activity that's going on in near space that has been filmed by various amateur astronomers here on the ground, who've got some very good actual space channels on YouTube. So do check some of those out. Like there's some great footage of aircraft buzzing around up there and all sorts of activity. So bear that in mind. So let's crack on with it. Let's go back to this image. We've got those steps here, and it may be vague, but you just got to look at these images the same way as you look at the Mars rover images, and kind of squint a little bit, and you can see the shapes there, you can see the steps, even in the raw image, it's there, okay? That is weird. And I only really just noticed that. I did attempt to do this video yesterday, but because I've had a nasty cold, I wasn't really able to, and I was having computer problems as well. There's been another strange update from Microsoft or something, and it's screwed up with some of my settings. But there's also some kind of weird stepped object here as well. I don't know if you can make that out. It's very dark. Let's brighten this up a bit, and we might be able to see better. Let's go really bright. Yeah, that doesn't really help a lot. Let's add some contrast. Let's go, yeah, that might actually do it. So there is some detail in here, and there's these sort of weird box-shaped rocks, if that's what they're supposed to be. And there's some rather odd sort of shaped stuff up here as well on the ridge that look like weird sort of structures just here. They're very vague, but this is precisely why they downgrade these images. NASA have been doing it for years. They downgrade the images and over-compress them, so that if you do find anything interesting that looks like a structure like this, then they can just say it's pixelation because it's a low-res image. Well, A, why are you taking such crappy low-res images in the first place? And B, why are you, if they're that low-res and small to start with, why even bother compressing them down further? Makes no sense to me. It is absolutely infuriating. Why would you get a crappy low-res image and then make it even more crappy and low-res by compressing it into a crappy JPEG? I mean, this is bad amateur stuff. It really is. I mean, we had satellites that could take photographs of a coin on the ground in the 1980s, you know, and tell whether it was the heads or tails on the coin, you know, on a dollar coin or something, or a pound coin or something, or pound notes it would have been in those days. So I mean, what the hell's going on? We're getting these crappy 1 meg cameras on these things. I don't think they actually are 1 meg cameras on these landers and rovers at all. I think we've been lied to for decades about this. Either they're using up old stock, or these missions are much older than we're being told. They're using up old equipment that just happens to have been tested already. They know it works. So, oh, that would do. It works. We tested it in space. We tested these cameras before on the moon and on Mars, whatever. Let's use them again. And they just keep using the same crappy little cameras. NASA have been using 1 meg cameras since the 1970s. I mean, it's an absolute bloody joke. I mean, what the hell's going on? You know, you can get a mobile phone with a 20 meg camera as standard now, and a lot of them are even higher. I mean, what the hell's going on with these space agencies? And China can't even be bothered. In fact, I'll do it for them, shall I? They couldn't even be bothered to fill this in here with black. I mean, how ridiculous is that? That's rank amateur behaviour. This should be black, right? I haven't got the tolerance set right, but I'll do it, shall I? Yeah, that's supposed to be black. Okay, whatever. You know, I just find it absolutely incredulous that we're still getting this rubbish from these so-called space agencies. And they must be taking much higher resolution pictures than this. I mean, this thing, at least I suppose, is 200 pixels per inch. But that's about it. I mean, you know, it's only a 1 meg image. 1000, I've enlarged it here, but the original is only 1024 by 1024. The same as the InSight lander, 1024 by 20, you know, the same. And the same as the old images from the Spirit and the Opportunity. The Curiosity rover images are slightly bigger, not much. They're about 50% larger. So they're sort of about 1.6 meg images or something like that, 1.6 or 7. But they're downgraded and downsized, and I'm sure they must be taking much higher quality images than we're being shown. I mean, why would you even bother sending something into space with a 1 meg camera on it when the European Space Agency sent a mission to 67P, which was launched 17 years ago, nearly 18 years ago, with a 5 meg camera on it? I mean, whereas this discrepancy has not been explained adequately. So there's obviously something going on here that we're not being told about. So there we are. I mean, there's some weird stuff in here. It's worth looking at anyway, I suppose. But you know, it really is quite unbelievable that we're still getting this rubbish from our space agencies, and they're claiming that they're so clever and advanced. Well, this isn't advanced. There's something advanced about this, and And the colour may be something to do with the camera. I mean, I've got a Chinese phone, and it makes everything look kind of yellow. It's got a yellow kind of tint to it, the colour on it. I've tried to change it, but it won't. So maybe they're using a similar camera to what I've got on my mobile phone. I don't know. But it's very odd. The colour's odd. There's some odd details at the back here. I mean, what's this long straight thing here supposed to be? And it's all pixelated, so you can't tell what you're looking at. They've got these weird sort of compression lines, like it's been scrubbed, like you get with the Rover images. There's something down here as well, sticking up here, but it's been scrubbed out by the looks of it. I don't know if you can make that out. There are some things in here, but it's been really scrubbed and altered and downgraded so that you can't actually see any real detail. So there we are, and this thing here is rather strange. I mean, that may just be a rock, but there's something there, just here, sticking up like a block. But like I said, they've scrubbed it. So as usual, let's go back to the original image. There we are. That's the original size. As usual, we're getting junk images from space, from not only from NASA, but now from China. So hooray for them, okay? Yeah, and let's hope they don't actually listen to this video, because if I actually lived in China, I would probably end up in a re-education camp like millions of other people in China. I've had ufologists from China who said they're trying to escape, and in North Korea who've actually emailed me in the past who said they wanted me to rescue them because they're being held against their will just for publishing photographs of UFOs and such like. So there's some nasty things going on in China, and people need to really look a little bit more carefully about what's going on there, because they call them re-education camps, but we all know a different name that we might call them in the West, like in World War II, for instance, okay? So what they're basically doing is anyone who speaks out against this regime in China are basically being put in internment camps, okay? Massive internment camps, millions of people, okay? So I don't like that, and I'm sure you don't either. So you've got to kind of feel sorry for these people over there. And there we are. Well, that was it really. I'm sorry I digressed a bit there, but I couldn't really talk about the Chinese space program without mentioning some of this stuff. And here's a quick thing here about DPI, dots per square inch. This is a measurement printing companies use to determine how sharp an image is. Yeah, so photos or images used for online web graphics can be at a low 72 DPI and will look fabulous on the computer screen. No, not really. And for printing purposes, they should be 300 DPI or better. The images we get from space generally are 200. But funny enough, the Apollo images from the Apollo archive on Flickr, which is here, Project Apollo archive, are 300 pixels per inch and are very big, equivalent of 16 megapixel or 16 meg images, okay? They are real, serious, lovely photographs. And I go back to them a lot because they are so good. They really are. They're a world apart from what we're getting now. And these were taken in the late 60s and early 70s, a long time ago. And look at the quality. You know, the detail is really quite awesome compared to what we're getting now. So what is going on in space? What do they not want us to see? The only reason you would put such crappy cameras on something is to hide stuff. You know, I mean, why even bother putting a camera on it at all if you're going to hide stuff? Well, they don't need to. They just make the images small. They use a 1 meg camera. They downgrade the images. They downsize them. They compress them. And what we get is a piece of crap, okay? So thanks for watching, everybody. Sorry I sort of went off on a bit of a tangent there, but there's some weird stuff going on up in space, and a lot of us ufologists and astronomers have been filming it from the ground. There's something going on up there, and they're not telling us what it is, and it may actually turn hot. Who knows? So keep an eye open for that, okay? Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you soon.